Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television. This is the program where we bring to your screens updates from the world of business, the economy, finance, the stock market. Of course, we look at the policies as it relates to Nigeria's socio-economic development. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining on the program today. First, we'll begin with the headlines. We'll start from issues around the minimum wage, salary payment. Federal government begins minimum wage review. And in the aviation sector, Nigeria Air, federal government airlines meet in court today. We'll give you more updates on that in the business roundup segment of the program. We'll take a short breather now. When we come back, we go straight into the stock market. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's get straight into the stock market and see what's happening in the stock market. Now we begin from the local buzz, talking about Custom Street, the Nigeria Exchange, where we saw a positive close for the Nigeria Exchange on Friday, 0.89% higher there. The benchmark all share index settled at 52,512.48. Now the Nigerian buzz, however, ended the week on a positive note, as although the market sentiment turned a little bit into the red territory. Now we saw a week-on-week gain of 2.52%, and the exchange recorded a gain of 702.71 billion naira. Now on activity chart, we saw a volume of 217.16 million shares valued at 2.55 billion naira. Change hands in 4,591 deals. The equity cap settled at 28.60 trillion naira. Let's go over now to other African buzzes. Of course, we go to JSE, Africa's largest exchange, 79,411, up 0.10%. So we are seeing the markets in South Africa open in positive. Locally, investors in South Africa were digesting news of higher power bills for customers this year after South Africa's energy regulator approved the 19% price rise for struggling state utility Eskom, the strongest in over a decade. Now they're talking about a tariff increase of 19% in South Africa. Now meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa has demanded the National Energy Crisis Committee work with the energy plan in order to mitigate the impact of the indefinite stage 6 load shedding. Currently in South Africa, they suffer at least 10 hours a day without electricity. In Ghana, we are seeing the JSE is largely unchanged. And also for Ghana, talking about some news, we are hearing now, reports are saying that there's going to be a 30% increase in salaries in Ghana. Recall that the year 2022 was filled with so much turmoil for the Gold Coast. But we are hearing news about increase in salaries, also the facility from the International Monetary Fund. So the coast is beginning to look clearer, and the gold is beginning to shine brighter for Ghana. Let's go now to the US and see what's happening. There's a sea of green now for the indices you can see here on your screen. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, the tech-heavy Nasdaq, up 0.71% there. Of course, the market are looking towards, we saw the inflation data, CPI data for the US come out, and that was the key major economic data for the markets last week. Also, the earnings have begun to roll in. It tells largely the health of the economy in the US. So that's majorly the focus for sentiments in the markets. Going over now to the European Straits. European markets follow the positive trend set in markets in Asia Pacific region and nudged cautiously higher on Monday, buoyed by cooling inflation data in the US last week, which has lifted investor sentiment. Also, all in the positive from the FTSE 100 in the UK, the CAC run in France, the CAC 40, and to the DAX in Germany. Now, the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Davos, and it commences today. Now, the forum is a key focus for European markets this week. Heads of state and business leaders mingle with academics and innovators in Davos. The key themes for delegates to debate and discuss are the war in Ukraine, economic instability and uncertainty, and climate change. So these are the issues that will be brought to front burner in Davos. Now, this year's World Economic Forum is taking place against a cost of living crisis for many across the world. And we are hearing news that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is the only group of 7 leaders set to attend the forum this year. So the World Economic Forum begins today. So we're going to give you updates as the forum continues. Going on to Asia. Markets in Asia Pacific mostly climbed as expectations are over a cooling inflation in the US. Now we are only seeing red coming from the Nikkei 225 in Japan, down 1.14% there. Now let's go over now to commodities chart. Let's see what's happening with commodity prices. So it's a mixed bag here for the commodities. Brent crude, the international benchmark for crude oil, up 0.70% at $84.68 per barrel. Now we are seeing the market staying largely positive. That's talking about for the oil market, hitting highest levels since the start of the year amid optimism over the reopening of China. Now China is opening its borders to do business, and we are seeing that the second largest crude importer in the world. Now going over now to the bullion, the yellow metal gold, $1,911 per ounce. Gold prices are climbing, and these are expectations over a slower rate hike. Remember, there's an inverse relationship between this, and that's why we are saying that when it cools down, we are seeing upbeat for the bullion. Now for agro commodities, for wheat, cocoa, palm oil, we're seeing cocoa and palm oil in the green, up 0.42% and 0.94% there respectively. Wheat is in the red, 0.04% lower. Let's go over to the crypto market. So the bulls are coming gradually back into the crypto market. $20,781 for Bitcoin. Remember, we saw Bitcoin hit as low as $16,000. Ethereum is doing $539, and we are seeing that this is largely, the momentum is rising in the Bitcoin market. We saw that FTX, the collapsed FTX exchange, was able to recover $5 billion in assets, and that is sending some good signals to the market, hence why we are seeing that the prices are climbing. For the Binance coin, almost hitting $300, $298.06, as you can see there. Those are the numbers we have to crunch for you on the program today. Trust us to continue to give you updates from the stock market on Business Daily. At this point, let's quickly bring you some business news making the rounds. Now, according to the National Salary Incomes and Wages Commission, a process has been started for the national minimum wage to be reviewed. This was revealed on Sunday in Abuja by Emmanuel Njoku, the Commission's head of public affairs. Njoku stated that the Commission has undertaken a series of meetings and trainings in preparation for a nationwide monitoring of the Minimum Wage Act 2019 as part of the process to review the minimum wage, which will be required in the year 2024. He claimed that the monitoring, which was scheduled to start on January 23, would determine the degree of compliance of both public and private enterprises and organizations. Now to issues in the aviation sector. Attorneys for the federal government and the domestic airlines are anticipated to meet on Monday at the Federal High Court in Lagos as the legal case around the contentious national carrier Nigerian Air and proceeds today. In December 2022, the case had been postponed until January 16, 2023. The Federal High Court in Lagos has been asked to move the matter to the Federal High Court in Abuja by the attorneys for the Nigerian Air, the Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika, and the Attorney General of the Federation Abubakar Malami. This request was made in a motion of notice submitted on Friday. The attorneys highlighted jurisdictional concern as a primary factor. The plaintiffs, on the other hand, were slated to submit a counter affidavit to contest the motion, according to representatives of domestic airlines operating under the auspices of the Airlines Operators of Nigeria. Those are the stories we have for you on the Business Roundup. Now, on today's edition of the program, we will be looking at security and the nation's economy. Now, the economics of insecurity in Nigeria. Remember, there is always a relationship between how secure a nation is and how that translates into socio-economic development for the nation. I will be joined on the program today by Chidi Omeje. He is a security analyst, and he will be putting perspective to some of these issues. 2023 is a peculiar year for Nigeria. The elections are just by the corner. What are also the expectations in terms of the security portfolio of Nigeria and the architecture generally? What should we expect as we proceed into the new year and the year 2023? So it promises to be insightful. I'm going to assure you of that. So don't go anywhere. I'll hold my horses here. Take a short break. When we return, the program will continue and we'll begin the conversation. Please stay with us.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130.
A Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. If you're just tuning in, this is, of course, Business Daily coming to you from Trust Television. This is where we'll basically give the numbers a human face, try to humanize the numbers and tell you the facts behind those numbers. I have my guest with me in the studio. He's Chidi Omeje. He's a security analyst and also the editor of Security Digest. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Just yesterday, we saw that Nigerians came together across different parts of the country to celebrate the fallen heroes, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, of course, for the sacrifices that we have seen them put, and also celebrate those they have left behind. I want you to speak to issues around the security situation in Nigeria. How would you describe Nigeria's current security portfolio?
The security in Nigeria, like we all know, I mean, we all feel, we all see, hasn't been the best, you know, hasn't been what we expect it to be as a country that have advanced to this level we are. The country is besetted, you know, across board by all manner of security challenges. From the northeast, where we have terrorism, you know, we have the Boko Haram and the ISWAP terrorists, you know, disturbing the people, to the northwest, where we have, you know, bandits, and of course even, you know, a partnership between the bandits and of course terrorists and kidnappers. It's not central. We have, you know, bandits also, and kidnappers, and a number of security challenges. Down to the south, in the southeast, where you have violent agitators, you know, who have made life very difficult in that region, and of course in the south, where we have attacks on our maritime assets, and then of course in the southwest, where you have all manner of violent, security challenges. So across board, we are actually fettered by, you know, these challenges. But that's not where the story ends. The country is not sitting back. The security forces, led by the armed forces, have been able to, you know, stand up to these challenges. Even though we haven't gotten the El Dorado, but you never can get it 100% actually. So yesterday, being 15th of January, was actually a day that we had to sit back to say, oh, look, we have a particular set of Nigerians who devote their life in noble profession to make sure that, you know, we sleep, you know, while they labor for us. So it becomes very befitting for us to actually dedicate a day to remember that. Left for me, actually, we should even go a step further to declare that day a public holiday. I hope one day that will come to pass, just to show that Nigerians actually appreciate the noble role of these men and women in military. Not just the military, actually. The police are there, and of course the coterie of security agencies across the country. So we must appreciate this fact that yes, we have these challenges, but we have men and women who have been up and doing, trying to make sure that that we have a semblance of peace. Have you sat back to ask, what if we don't have? What if people are not fighting this this scourge? Maybe by now we have been overrun by maybe Boko Haram and its ilk, the ISWAP in the northeast, and probably the cross-border bandits across the Sahel may have taken over, or maybe the IPOP guys may have separated the country entirely, or maybe our marital asset. Of course, you heard about oil theft and stuff.
Yes.
So if we don't have all our security, men and women working, doing these efforts, probably we won't have a country to celebrate today. So this is to appreciate our men and women in the armed forces and their security agent partners, and of course to appreciate Nigerians also for being steadfast in spite of all these challenges. So we've come a long way.
I want you to also speak to issues around this, because when we're preparing for this program, we looked at that phrase, the economics of insecurity. Because then again, as I mentioned in my opening statements, the security and economy cannot work in silos. Of course, we have both work hand in hand, because when you look at indexes, global indexes, security tops the charts, because for foreign direct investments to come into your country, for investors to also come into your country, they need to be assured that the business environment is secure.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on having the business environment secure and policies around tackling insecurity.
Well, there's always a natural nexus between business and economy and security. If you don't have a secure environment, if you don't have a stable place, you don't do business. Apart from the foreign direct investment you talked about, even the local economy can thrive. Now you are looking at the country that have a subsistence economy. We're talking about, don't forget that agriculture is mainstay of our economy, and up north here you have vast lands that people are not able to even access their farms because of insecurity. We also have commercial, commerce as part of our economy. The Southeasterners are best at that, but you could see that every Monday they don't work anymore. They sit back. Every day there are killings in Southeast because of insecurity. So you see, security has always been a serious issue, and it has to be a serious issue if you're talking about economy, because you cannot do anything. Okay, look at, we have a robust fish economy in Borno State, right? In Lake Chad axis. But because of this Boko Haram crisis, because of all the terrorism that you see that particular economy has been disrupted. So we are looking at a time when we can have a semblance of peace, where we can see that we'll be able to get our security to an extent that people can go back to their farms, people can transact their businesses, people can travel, people who sell motor parts, who deal in all manner of stuff. We should be able to have freedom to traverse across the country to do their businesses, without the fear hanging on your neck that they might be kidnapped or that might be killed on the road. So we can't progress as a country if we don't get our security right. That is why, men and women of goodwill must always insist that, look, you cannot play with security. You can't play with peace and security in the country. And that's why I always advocate that we should pay premium on these issues, so that we understand that we can't make progress without peace. It is just not possible.
I'm being told of an interesting aspect now to this conversation, whereby some of these bandits or criminal elements that have become a thorn in the flesh of Nigerians collect something they call a tax for farmers to go into their farm, which is such an unfortunate situation, because we expect that inflation is already hitting Nigerians hard. Disposable income is not going up, and we are having issues around this, collecting tax from farmers to go to their farms, and it boils down to what you have said. In the end, it affects every one of us.
It's incredible. You can imagine, poor farmers struggling to make ends meet, and they have to be, they have to be the added, apart from not just the fact that they're paying that tax, but the psychology of it. You cannot look. I don't know. Some of us who grew up in villages, we are farmers too.
Yes.
You can't do anything if you don't have that stability of mind.
Yes.
Now you're looking at farmers maybe in the north who are challenged by this thing you have just mentioned, and that's the reality. The reality is that the grim reality about what you just said is that they have to they have to pay that tax.
True.
They have to do that, or otherwise they don't farm or they get killed.
Yeah.
So now you look at the consequence of all this. It means low productivity.
True.
It means that people don't access their farm. It means that people don't have the psychological environment to do the job they ought to do. Remember sometime about 2 years ago when rice farmers were slaughtered in Borno State. It simmers down. Co-farmers will be scared. Yes. People don't access the farms anymore. People don't. So it's a whole lot of problem we are facing. I wish that this election we are coming in, that we will be able to, mainstream security, whatever we consider as issues to consider.
That's the next question I was going to put up to you.
Because it's very important.
The electioneering season has entered into full gear, and we expect that the powers, of course, will change hands in terms of the presidency, and it's going to, of course, trickle to different strata. I want you to speak to your expectations, especially with regards to the security architecture. Now, there's been a whole lot of campaigns going on, and I'm very sure you have been following these updates from the candidates that are vying for different positions. Yeah. What do you have? What are your thoughts as it relates to security?
Yes, my thought is that it appears we have not taken them on seriously on security issues. That should be the cardinal thing to talk about, because like we talked, like both of us spoke earlier on, you can't get anything right if you don't have security. You can't even do anything. You can't do plans. You can't plan your country. You can't progress if you're not secured. So I expect that these candidates we have should speak to us on daily basis what they want to do about security. This is not a time to say I'll keep it under wraps. Give us an idea. Are you really serious about it? Have you been able to understand the fact that security is key as a candidate? You have to let us know that. You have to let us into your thinking about it, because it's important to us. Okay, now you talked about the security architecture. I don't know if you're talking about how do I put it now? The entire security business in Nigeria here. Now, my understanding about it is that we have a very faulty internal security operations mechanism now. What do I mean? It means that the way we deal with our internal security challenges, we are not getting it right. Because naturally, we ought to have the Nigerian police as the lead agency in dealing with internal security challenges. But right now, because we have more or less, quote unquote, bastardized this structure, this lead agency that ought to be the first responders have abdicated that role. And then the one that ought to be the last responder, the military, have now come to the fore, meaning that the first responder have become the last, and the last become the first. So now it is very faulty, because the military actually are not trained to deal with civil space. They're trained to fight war, conquer spaces, and conquer territories and stuff. But the police people are supposed to know, they're supposed to be with the communities, to know what is happening, to nip it in the bud. But right now, they have more of VIP protection. And then, they do more of protecting the politicians and their spouses and the entertainers and stuff. You could see them in the social media. You see a uproaring entertainer being surrounded, being held, being served by about 5 or number of policemen carrying their bags and stuff. Incredible, terrible. No country grows like that. So what I'm trying to say right away is that we must get the architecture right. Let us make sure that the military do what they ought to do. That is to provide aid, support to civil police. Police ought to take charge, but it is only when the situation is beyond their capacity that we should expect the military to take charge. But by the time they stabilize the situation, they leave. Because you do that because, If you don't do that, you are now subjecting your military to the nuances of the society, the idiosyncrasies in the society. You could see military sometimes, you see some of them collecting bribes in the checkpoint, but this shouldn't be their remit. It shouldn't be their natural abode. Yes. But because we've made them to, you see them every day, in their different joint task forces, running around with policemen and stuff. To me, it rubs off negatively on their professionalism. So back to the architecture I'm talking about. I'm looking at the time where we get it right to the point that we have enough policemen to take charge in our internal security operations, so that our military can sit back and deal with those external aggression and, of course, insubordination that is beyond police.
Okay, Chidi Major there. Now, before I quickly let you go, now President Buhari campaigned on the premise of fighting insecurity. And we know next month, when a new president comes, his tenure would come to an end when the official handover takes place.
Yeah.
On a percentage level, how would you rate that fight in 10 seconds against insecurity?
Let me give you 50%.
50%.
I think I'm generous enough.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. Chidi Omeje, security analyst and editor, Security Digest. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
And that's where we wrap up the program today. Thank you also for investing your time with us on the program. Don't forget you can catch up on all updates on news making the rounds in the policy. Trust us to bring this news, authentic news, of course, to you as they break. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Continue to stay safe and bye for now.